Welcome to another episode of Off Script with Rip. I'm your host, Ryan Ripken, and this is a podcast where I bring on guests from a variety of industries to talk about their story. And regardless of the path that they have chosen to take, if you listen to the words, there's a lot you can relate to and hopefully resonate with. But for some reason, if there isn't, I can guarantee you there are some tremendous stories. And this week's guest is professional baseball player Coby Mayo. Coby was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles in the fourth round of the 2020 MLB Draft, and now he is currently in Double-A with the Bowie Bay Sox, which is the Double-A affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles. And Coby Mayo now has just jumped into the top 100 baseball prospects in all of professional baseball. I mean, Coby is a stud. He's a big kid with tremendous power, and I think he's going to get to the big leagues sooner rather than later. But the point of the interview was to hear more about his mindset. He's got a great one. He continues to climb the ranks, and just hearing about his experience and how he's adjusted and really just figuring out more of Coby as a person. He really is a great individual, and I can't wait for you guys to hear the interview. But before we start the interview, if you could please like, subscribe, and review the Off Script with Rip podcast, that'd be extremely beneficial to me because at the end of the day, I want to continue growing this and I want to make this better for all the listeners out there. So now I'm done. So without further ado, here is the interview with Coby Mayo. Welcome to another episode of Off Script with Rip. I'm your host, Ryan Ripken, and this is a podcast where I bring on guests from a variety of industries, but we do talk about sports a lot. And today's guest is Orioles minor leaguer Double-A player Coby Mayo. How you doing, Coby?
What's up, Ryan? How are you? Good to be here.
Well, thanks for taking. I know it's an off day, and I know how valuable those are coming from it. I'll give the little spiel, and we can get this part out of the way, and you can tell me right or wrong. You were a high school pick in 2020, the COVID year, fourth round, outside of or down in Florida. Is that kind of right so far?
Yeah. Right outside of Fort Lauderdale, and at a high school, fourth round. Weird year with COVID, but we're here.
Yeah, you know what I was actually thinking about that was a lot of people's draft experiences are leading up to it. They have different ways to get to that as far as, you're doing the tournaments and you're playing your season. For you, everything kind of stopped.
Yeah.
What was we all have a certain draft moment. I mean, what was kind of your draft sensation or moment going into that?
Yeah, it was weird. Like how I had it pictured was, I go throughout my senior year, season starts, you got, the whole season, you got prom, you got graduation. And before you know, you look up and the draft is like right here. But that didn't work out as visualized. COVID came around, and 8 games into the season, we got banged and kind of sat around and didn't know if the season would keep going or not. So we kind of stayed working out in my little garage. My trainer would come and stayed ready, and they canceled the season. And all of a sudden it's like April, and we're like, well, we still got 2 months, 3 months to the draft. So now we're just like, what do we got to do? Who do we got to talk to? How's this going to work out? So it was a lot longer of a sitting around game than we thought it was going to be. But, it all worked out at the end.
Yeah, so it was brutal. My girlfriend's sister, you're 21? Yeah, she's 21 as well. I remember just going through and realizing she had all that canceled. And not talking about she not sports wise, just like the little things, prom, graduating, that senior year. I feel for you on that. That stinks. What was it like then as far as communicating with teams leading up to the draft? Because usually scouts, then they're going to come watch you play.
Yeah.
And now all you're doing is just blindly continuing to work out and just kind of potentially just hearing from guys here and there.
Yeah. So in the fall, we had teams come into my house, meet my parents, sit down, have a conversation. And then after we all got shut down, it was kind of like, hey, we're going to hop on a Zoom call with all our scouts and, GM and, whoever's going to be on the call. So I'd hop on a computer. we talk, and that's it. There was a little hitting link that if I ever had video, I could put it on like an email and send it to put it on this link with all the teams would see, the video I put out there. So once or twice we went out to the cages when they were open and we would hit and put the video out there. But there was not really much we could do. Like everything was shut down, so we couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I remember it was so weird. I actually was in spring training. It's wild to me. Now I'm done playing and now I feel like I'm getting older. But a lot of the guys, obviously, that are with the Orioles, the big league team, a lot of those guys are my teammates. And I remember in 2020 being down in spring training and remembering the world ending, and actually the farm director, Matt Blood, it was his first time us getting to know him. And I remember walked in like, hey, Matt, so are we showing up here tomorrow? And he's like, I don't know. But just hang out in Florida, I guess, and it's just so it's such a weird circumstance, but especially for you, it was already making the jump from high school to go to professional baseball is already going to be a different world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then to tie it all in when you're trying to go through a pandemic is just way different. I'm assuming you had a commitment to a college.
Right. Yeah. I was committed to the University of Florida.
There you go. UF. So, but then obviously when was the inkling that you kind of thought, or were you going in open-minded that, you might still go to college, or were you really thinking, well, you know what, I think I'm ready to start my pro career. And I really, it looks like that's a real possibility.
Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to do both. All right. I wanted to play in pro ball. I wanted to get drafted out of high school, and I wanted to go to college and try to win a college World Series. So I was kind of open-minded going into the draft. Like, this is a weird draft. I felt like I was going to go, kind of like where I thought I would go or before, but you just never know with the draft. It's very unexpected. So I was going into the draft like, hey, if it doesn't work out the way we wanted to, like I'll go to college and work it out there. And if we get what we want, we'll take it and, start pro ball out of high school. So we were open-minded, and, it just happened to work out with the Orioles, and obviously really happy that it did. But I was very, very okay with doing either or.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I ask it that it's a tough age to figure things out and make the decision. And it's not I hate saying it's a life-changing decision,
right?
Where you're drafted 18.
Yeah. 18 years.
18.
18, yeah.
But those years, there's so much going on already in your life as far as you're a teenager. You're trying to figure out who you are as an individual.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm assuming, a lot of your friends, you take out, you guys you played travel ball with, but a lot of them were not having the opportunity to go into this next, the next possibility of playing professional baseball. Is that fair to say?
Right. Yeah.
So you're following it. So your friends are doing they're going to do a completely different path than you. That was something for me. Like I in Maryland, have you figured out that people like lacrosse up here yet?
A little bit.
You're
not much.
too.
It's hard. It's hard to know. It's strictly just wake up, go to the field, get back from the field, sleep, repeat it every day. So it's hard to.
And we'll touch more on the cycles of how this works.
Yeah.
But the thing I want to get across, that to me always pulled at me where I knew my friends and I were going to go different paths.
Yeah.
And I kind of, part of me had that regret. Was that any worry for you, or that regardless when the decision did become you were going to sign, you were 100% cool with it?
Yeah, I think I'm cool with it because I know, even if I do go to college, you're there year round. You're putting your life into baseball and in school, and you have to focus on that. So even if your friends are at different schools, you're not really with them. So it's kind of hard both ways, and in the summers you'd be playing, so, summer ball. So it's like it's the same, similar schedules with baseball. You're kind of playing a year round and having, few weeks, maybe a few months off, and that's really it. Yeah, the biggest, I think the biggest thing for me was a lot of people think, going to pro ball out of high school, like, oh, I'm not ready yet. I don't think anyone's really ready. I think you have to get there and, get your feet wet and kind of like, go through it a little bit, struggle a little bit and come out better from those struggles. And, I think you'll become more ready after that. No one's really ready when you're 18 years old to step into, these big shoes that they're putting on you.
Yeah, I think that's, you know what? You're a lot more mature than just your level-headedness. And not that I'm surprised by that at all, but what I am saying is being a young person and having that perspective at 18.
Yeah, right.
Because, dude, I remember feeling so overwhelmed when I even just went to college for my first year, and even getting into pro ball at 20 was when I started.
Yeah.
It still felt a lot. There's a lot of moving parts there. And even though I thought I was ready, there's still parts of you where you're going to figure out, you're going to be humbled and reminded that this is not going to be easy.
Yeah. I mean, I think every level you take, every jump you take, you're going to get humbled. Whether it's early, late, in the middle of the season, you're going to get humbled, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's just kind of like the reality, I definitely, like, those first few weeks at Instructs in 2020 in October, I felt super overwhelmed, and, I got humbled. It was tough. It was hard. And, those 3-4 weeks, made me a lot better now, so, a lot of people aren't ready, but it's just kind of like how you come back from that.
Yeah. Before I dive into the pro ball grind, because professional baseball is just a different beast that even though it's a privilege and you're doing stuff that so many people would want the opportunity to. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But the last thing, closing up with your draft, I mean, is there was the Orioles a team you felt that they actually were in on you, or was it hey, surprise, it's the Orioles, or did you think someone else was going to be completely in the mix?
Yeah, I think we had a good idea of what teams were interested, and I think the Orioles were definitely one of those teams. And also, it helped that they were a high pick in the first round. They had the second pick, and then they had a first round comp pick. Mm-hmm. So those two picks right there had a lot of draft money in the pool. So they had a really high pool, and I know a lot of those teams that had those top picks that were interested were definitely a possibility. The Astros didn't have a lot of money, but they were a team that were right there in the mix. There was like 4 or 5, 6 teams that were super high. But when my agent called and told me the Orioles, I really wasn't that surprised.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going with it, because I've had certain guys who are like, yep, no idea. So Spencer Watkins with the O's, I remember I sat down, we talked about it. He was like, yep, I don't think I even talked to the Tigers. That was the team that ended up taking him. But I guess a little bit different when because essentially, for people that might not understand this, I'm just going to explain it for a second. The draft pool of money is each team in the slots earlier in the draft. And usually, typically, because your draft was just 5 rounds, right, for the COVID year.
Yep.
Draft rounds in general, there's slot value for the 10 rounds. And before, each pick would have a certain slot. So if you were the number 1 overall pick, that slot value for number 1 overall could be, $8 million, let's say. I don't know what it is this year. So for people looking at it, that's slotted money. That's what Coby's talking about. With when those picks are, that's what the team is kind of set at the parameters of what that pick is supposed to be. Now, whether the guy signs for more or less, that's a whole different topic for that. I just wanted to kind of explain that. But But anyway, you move on. Congrats. You're an Oriole. A few years later, but the humbling part, I think, did you have an idea of what pro ball was going to be when you went down to that? Or is that an eye opener of you're going to the backfields? It's hot. It's not glamorous as
Right.
much as it sometimes can be looked at.
I didn't really know what to expect. I'm not sure. It's 3 years later. I'm not sure exactly what I was thinking. I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was going to be a lot of baseball. I knew it wasn't going to be a lot of it was going to be like a college feel where coaches are looking down and, kind of like, they were kind of just going to let you do your thing almost. They're going to help you out when you need it, but they're going to let you do your thing for the most part. And I like that, right away in instructs. It was kind of like, hey, if you need anything, let us know. Defensively, strength and conditioning, hitting, everything was kind of just like do your thing. But it's been really, as much as the grind is, it's been really fun meeting all these new people and getting into these teams and different levels and meeting new people on other teams and seeing people you've played with in high school or when you were younger. So it's been cool, as tough as it is, and those backfield games sometimes are tough.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say it's called the FCL now, but it was called the GCL.
Yeah.
And I always felt that's where you had your true test of if you actually love this sport, because there's really no glory in
No.
those games.
No, it's hot. There's no fans. You're playing, these 18, 19-year-olds who really have a lot of raw, young talent. Just kind of go out there, show what you can do, and, just be ready to play at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock every day. Get to the field at 6 a.m., 6:30, and go through your day and get ready for the game.
I think I get haunted by some of those memories of when I played but there are some of the greatest memories of it. But yeah, it takes you back, honestly, to summer ball when you're playing in summer tournaments. But even summer tournaments, I mean, I'm sure, did you do all like the perfect game stuff and travel and all that? Like when you go to those places, like you're gonna have a lot of scouts and college coaches and whatnot. Parents are there. I don't even know how to categorize the FCL GCL, because it's like it's that the competition. These are pro players, but no one's there's no other interest. It's all development.
Yeah, it's funny. So we played the Red Sox in Fort Myers during one of the FCL games, and we played at a backfield, which I played at 100 times growing up in Fort Myers. I mean, living in South Florida, you play your summer tournaments, a lot of them in these perfect game tournaments in Fort Myers. So like getting to the field and like going into the dugout of those backfield JetBlue field games, it was funny. I stepped on the field and I was like, wow, I played here 20 times a few years ago. Now I'm playing here in pro ball. It's kind of weird a little bit.
Yeah, it's the same field.
Yeah.
Same thing you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
You might have had more people there when you were younger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever make the mistake of calling anyone coach in pro ball?
I don't think so. I don't think I've called anyone coach yet.
I don't think
I have.
Oh, good. I had some people there that came from, and maybe it was college and also just high school kids, and they dropped a coach. And for those that don't know, you don't call people coach in pro ball. You call them first name or their nicknames. There's no such thing as that. And actually, like I help out with doing some lessons nowadays, and people call me Coach Ryan, and I'm like, I don't know. I get it, but I was just curious. I've seen people ripped, get shredded by a coach. I started my career at the Nationals. That was always just something. Did you have we all kind of have a welcome to pro ball moment, Yeah. Do you have one specifically that you can think of?
I mean, the only thing I can think of off the top is my first at bat in pro ball was off Grayson Rodriguez in Instructs in Ed Smith Stadium, first at bat. in a like kind of like an inter squad game.
Yeah.
I mean, 18 years old, had to go up against Grayson Rodriguez in my first pretty much pro at bat. Yeah, it wasn't a fun experience in the box, but I made it a little bit competitive. But I think he struck me out on the nasty changeup.
So when you went in there, was your thought of being? And this is actually fascinating to me. When you first saw him in your pitching, were you just kind of like, man, he's like his stuff's like nasty. I haven't seen this, or how am I like I not that he's saying you're unprepared, but
Right.
did you felt overmatched a little bit?
Yeah, it was weird. So I didn't know a lot about Grayson. Like I knew the name because he was, just one of the top prospects. And so I was talking to some of the guys before I got up there. I was like, oh, like, what does he kind of throw? Like, what's his good pitches? And like it throws like up to like 97, and he's got a nasty changeup. And I was like, changeup? Like I mean, coming from high school, you see kind of like fastball, curveball, and that's really it. Like especially like right on right, you don't see a lot of changeups. But I don't know. I stepped into the box and felt like it was 0-2 pretty quick before I could blink, and nasty changeup in the dirt that looked like a fastball down the middle.
Whammy.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to pro ball there. Yeah, it's the reason why I'm saying it's interesting because mine in a different sense when you start to face someone that this is what you're going to try to strive to go against and to have success against each and every day.
Mm-hmm.
But initially when you're first exposed to it, you do feel overwhelmed. I remember when I was in South Carolina, my freshman year, a pitcher threw a slider, and just the amount of depth on the slider and how much break it had just threw me off. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to adjust to that. But then you find out over time, you're going to get more comfortable. You're going to get better with it. I actually just thought I was going to share this. My first pro ball moment, I don't think actually was playing. Did you, or you might be too young for this. Did you ever see the brawl with AJ Pierzynski? You know what AJ Pierzynski is, the catcher for the White Sox? I think he has his own thing now. Did you ever see the brawl between the White Sox and the Cubs when Pierzynski ran over a catcher?
I probably have seen it before. I've seen all those brawls, but I don't remember like what exact one it was.
Fair enough. So to give context to it, Pierzynski runs over the Cubs catcher, slams his head on the plate, or slams his hand on the plate, and then the catcher for the Cubs gets up and socks Pierzynski in the face. That catcher that socked Pierzynski in the face was my first manager in pro ball, Michael Barrett. Okay. And Barrett is great, but also my first memory is him socking AJ.
Yeah.
And so so we get down there and he goes, "Hey Ryan, great to see you." And I said, "Oh, thanks for having me." And instead of calling him Michael, I called him Mike. And he jumped on me. And I'll refrain from cursing on this episode. But he dropped a "Don't you effing call me Mike ever again. You got that?" And I'm like, "Oh, got it." And I'm like, "Don't hit me." And that was my moment of like, okay, don't hit me, stay back. But it's just different. And when I talk to people about pro ball and getting going, there is a big adjustment period. And I think that's a big transition for it. For you, it's a little bit different as far as not even transition. We talked about the COVID coming out of that. You talked about getting your feet wet in instructs, and instructionally for people, it's after the season's over, they bring down prospects to just work on getting better. It's like a camp for a month.
Yeah.
But then you were injured in your first quote unquote full season in 21. Kind of walk me through, a guy that dealt with injuries early on in his career. I got injured 3 weeks into when I signed. How are you feeling at that point? Did you feel anxious, stressed? Because it's not the ideal. Let's be honest, it's not ideal start that you want. Because all you want to do is go out there and play.
You're right. Yeah, it was my first at bat in spring training ever. 2021 first at bat, and just something wasn't right. You knew it. And, talking to some doctors and stuff with my knee, it was the best thing to sit out for 12 weeks, rehab a little bit. And it wasn't great. After getting drafted, you kind of have these kind of like expectations on your shoulders. You want to like go out and prove that you can play and show them kind of like, hey, this is why you drafted me. I'm going to go play and prove it to you guys, right? But I wasn't able to do that. 12 weeks rehabbing wasn't really fun. It sucks. But coming back and going through that process and learning a lot about myself and watching the game a little bit, I think that kind of helped me out, just watching the game. It kind of sounds stupid coming from the outside, but some like we were talking about earlier, sometimes you're not ready yet, and I don't know why this happened, but it happened, and I was able to sit back and reflect and learn more about hitting and just everything in general. So went through that, rehab went good and started playing in the FCL.
Again, I think that's a moment where a lot of people take for granted, is when things go wrong, you can kind of find yourself in two different ways. One, you can either you can be motivated, but also focused on what you want to do.
Yeah.
The other part, you can be, oh, woe is me. You're frustrated. But I think the bigger thing, and there's a third element to it, was I thought it was interesting, the taking a step to reflect and look back. So is there a specific thing reflecting on for you that kind of puts you into a good place with that? Was it watching more? Were you studying more? You said you were studying more with hitting. Was it also maybe just taking a step back and realizing where you are so far in your life and career? What is there any specific of that you really might have not thought of had it not happened?
Right. I think I was in a weird spot with my hitting and how I wasn't getting consistent at bats because, first of all, coming off of COVID in high school, I didn't get that season. And then, we had instructs, which I had probably 20 at bats. So, and then that was in October. So then I had November, January, February, March, and then we didn't report that year until April. So I had another 4 months without really any at bats. So I was in a weird spot with hitting and didn't feel comfortable in the box, So I felt those, it was my first spring training at bat. So, I had some live at bats, but it just didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel like me. So when that happened and I got hurt, I kind of could, talk with the hitting coaches about certain things and watch some guys at bats in our organization through a website we have, and it was just kind of nice to like look back and look at these games and like, okay, like watching Gunners at bats and Westburg and some guys I got drafted with, like, okay, like this is how he's doing, this is how they're pitching him, what is he doing, kind of like just studying a little bit. And it kind of sounds weird, but like that's all you could do. Like there's turn on an MLB game and watch a little bit. And then when I got back into playing, took some of those cues and, it's not baseball. You try to make it simple as possible and you don't want to overthink, but it was nice. Like I think, everyone has like their, like you said, welcome to pro ball, like I said with Grayson, but kind of like getting hurt, like first about his spring training, like sometimes it's good luck. Like it's weird, but it's a good luck thing. You know what I mean? Like first at bat in spring training and that happens, like maybe happened for a reason. Like, you don't know.
Well, I think so. And to the point, I think so much in sports, and sorry, I got distracted. It is just absolutely monsooning outside.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, it's monsooning. Well, yeah, we're pretty close. I'm DC. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right down towards Bootown and Bowie. And we'll get to Bootown here in a minute. But in general, back to the topic, I think so much with athletes or just any profession, when you're in the moment and things aren't going well, you can't really understand it as well. And
100%.
really, when you have to take a step back, but it's hard to do that when you're continuing to play. And to your point, when you're hurt really became that opportune moment. And so for those out there, studying the game it's might be as cliche as possible, but you can really learn a lot. And that's probably your best for you. It seemed like it reset your mind.
Yeah.
So the reset for you ended up being possibly the perfect thing for you because it got you back on track. You finished your 2021 of getting your feet wet playing. And then 2022 was kind of really your first real season of going off to play professional baseball and just go out there and play.
Yeah.
And things went very well for you, to say the least. As a young guy, and at that age, you were just 20, right? Am I wrong with that?
I was 20 last year.
Yeah. So how did you enjoy your first year of pro ball?
It was
like
a blast.
First year of like actually under the lights and you're traveling and you're on buses and it actually feels like this is what you came here to do.
Yeah, it was a blast. I kind of feel like I was kind of a part of that 2021 draft. They got drafted when I was in Florida and rehabbing in 2021, and we kind of went up to Delmarva together. And then, that was essentially that team in Aberdeen last year was that 2021 draft. So it was awesome, man. It was a blast. Our team had the best record in minor league baseball throughout the first 2 months. We clinched playoffs through like the first 2 months of the season, the first half. So it was great. Like you said, like the bus trips and playing home series, and it was just everything together was just it was a cool experience. Playing in Aberdeen was cool. Some of the places we went were awesome, and I couldn't have asked for a better group of people to play with and be coached by. And then obviously like the promotion up to Bowie, it was awesome. Got hurt a little bit for a few weeks, but just finishing out, moving up a level was cool to do, and it was a really cool year.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah, for people, if you definitely know that you're not flying private, you're not even busing in this luxurious things. You're just hopping on a bus with 40 people, including staff. Body ever feeling tight after games? Because Lord knows, those bus rides can take a beating on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those bus rides, like you said, they're not fun. Sometimes you're going 6-7 hours. You got to leave on a Monday. So you get done with your game Sunday. The next day you're leaving. So you don't really have an off day to rest. You're kind of sitting on a bus for your off day. I think that's just a part of it, feeling tight, not feeling great, but feeling good enough to play. And these are your stats. These are your numbers that people see. And, you have to find a way to feel good enough to play and do well. Yeah,
you're right. People don't care about the circumstances.
Yep.
They're only going to look at the end results is how it's going to be. You never got to see the old alignment, and we talked about before starting this. You haven't really lived unless you've taken a 13-hour bus ride.
Oof.
That we went to Rome, Georgia. It used to be in the South Atlantic League. Now is High A, and the Carolina League is Low A, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Delmarva, though, South Atlantic League for us, and we had to go to Rome, Georgia. We left after a night game, and we got in at 1:00 p.m. It was really, really a great experience. I'm sorry that you didn't have that. Did you have any crazy bus stories with that? Anything that sticks out of like, this just seems like it's right out of a movie?
Not like crazy. The only thing I could really think of was a few weeks ago, I was telling you too, going from a night game in Akron, Ohio, 6:35, and then we left at 10:30. We didn't get back to the field until like 5 a.m., 4:45. Then you got to unload your stuff and then drive back to your apartment. So when I was driving back to the apartment, it was light outside almost. And then slept on my off day from like 6:30, 7 o'clock to, 12 o'clock. And that's still not even great sleep. So, I mean, yeah, some of the road trips are tough, but I think that's a part of it. That's what gets you better. It's
Mental
weird to
toughness.
say. It is mental toughness. Absolutely.
Don't like it, play better. Get to the bigs, and then you get to travel private, I guess, right? We had one actually in short season. Our bus driver Dan, can never forget driver Dan, and very interesting guy. He parked the bus way too close to the field, and it was our first road trip of the year. Foul ball breaks the glass on part of the van on the side on the bus, and we have to duct tape it shut. And it starts hailing rain. It's actually just pissing, and we're putting towels up there. Oh yeah, see that was once. And also that same trip, which again I doubt you've had this experience. We get to where we're going. They don't have enough hotel rooms for us.
Wow.
And so they go, guys, and so when you're on the road, you have a roommate on the road?
Yeah.
Right? So you get 2 beds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go, guys, we have less rooms. So it's 2 beds. We're going to quadruple up.
2 people do a bed. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. So
gotta cuddle with the pitcher.
Well, you know what? It was really, the thing is, they didn't actually, if I take that back a step, they didn't tell us that initially we were quadrupling up. They just gave players 4 keys. And then all of a sudden I'm in bed and our door's getting knocked into by a couple Latin guys. And as you know, some of the younger players don't know English as well. And my Spanish, Coby, is not very good yet. It should be better.
Okay.
And so, but then I understood. I'm like, oh, you guys are in this room as well. And that's when I texted the trainer. It's like, yep, that's happening. So we had that going on. I got my roommate who I slept in the same bed with. Maybe he was missing his now wife. But I had to give him a little elbow to the stomach to remind him that, we need our distance in this little queen bed or whatever the heck we were in, twin bed.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry you didn't get to experience that, man. Well, maybe one day. You never know.
Yeah,
But anyway, you have a lot of success, and I think that's sometimes hard, and especially in this organization where guys are doing really well. I mean, you mentioned Gunnar, freak player. He's doing well. Jordan Westberg crushing it. And you're also doing your thing and doing it at a young age. Was there anything, what was something then for you on a day-to-day basis that's kind of, in your routine to help you stay focused? Because you guys do have expectations. You don't have that same expectation right now as, say, Gunnar, but you could.
Yeah.
So what are you kind of telling yourself as you're going through and having success? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you had 19 bombs in that 21. Is that right?
Yeah, 19 last year.
Goodness gracious, man. Yeah, I know you got some pop. I've seen the videos, and a lot of people I've talked to have said that. So how do you keep yourself grounded in the moment?
This is going to sound very typical, but it's just staying afloat, staying in the middle, not getting too high, not getting too low, and turning baseball off when the game is over. Get back to the apartment, talk with your roommate, play some video games, not talk about baseball. Talking to friends from home is big because they're not here, so you're talking about other things besides baseball. I think just having your baseball on and off, turning it on and turning it off when you need to, helps a lot. Because if you're baseball 24/7, I mean, I'm at the field at home from 12:30 to 10 at night, 9:30. So you're there all day. So the last thing you want to do is come home and keep talking about baseball. And sometimes you need to. Sometimes you're struggling. You're going to be like, all right, what am I doing? Talk to some people. But for the most part, you want to turn that off, play some video games, hop on with your buddies and play. That's what keeps me kind of even throughout the season. Just, hey, you want to hop on this game and we play for a little bit, and you kind of forget about, baseball for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you got to decompress, and there's so many different ways. And as much as people look at this sport as a game, which you are playing a game, it is your livelihood, and I think sometimes that's forgotten. I try to tell people up here with Gunnar getting off to a slow start, just as far as, not that he wasn't getting on base, but just the way that people expected him to hit.
Right.
And it's like, look, this is hard. And even though it's supposed to be for fun, you got to find a way to reset yourself to kind of get through it. And it's great that you have that set in place. A lot of people don't. Like I struggled to turn it off. I did. I struggled with expectations because, let's just face it. I mean, if you hear Ripken, you're probably going to think of someone who played a long time. And has a huge head. So like those types of things. So it's just nice hearing for you in this case, for you, as far as personal growth as a player. What do you think was your biggest jump? Because then this year you built off of what you did last year. And the biggest thing I tell people is you want to see that you're continuing to see that you're taking that next step. What is it for you that it may be something that you've seen yourself just overall grow as a player? It can be a specific thing or it can be a concept.
Right.
I mean, what is something you've noticed from first day in to now having the success you're having in Bowie?
Yeah. I've just been working really hard with polishing my game up, defensively. We've worked a lot during spring training. I mean, last year, but this year during spring training and in this season so far, a lot of defense, a lot of, working on certain things. And, with the hitting, just kind of like using the whole field a little bit. I do get very pull heavy at times, and that's kind of like my game in a way. But, there's so many other things out there that will help you, hit for better average, extra base hits, Sometimes when you're looking to pull everything, you kind of get out in front of a lot of stuff. When you're looking in the middle of the field, maybe that slider that starts middle that you want to pull, and you're out in front of it. You look middle of the field, you stay back a little bit more, and you see that it's going to be a ball. Just those little things, taking your walks, just being a better player overall is what's helped me so far this season.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's the personal growth, but because at times I always thought having an intention of what you're trying to do or focus on, and then being able to. I think the biggest thing that I noticed is making adjustments when you fail. How quickly can you adapt? Is that something you feel that you've gotten better at too? Is if you go into a struggle, that you can get out of it quicker?
Yeah, I mean that's what baseball is. I feel like you're going to struggle more than you succeed. So it's just how fast can you get out of those struggles? Talking with hitting coaches or watching video, whatever you need to do. Whether it's offensively, defensively, you make an error. Okay, why did I make that error? Maybe this and this happened. That next ground ball you get, you'd fix it. It's one error that's done instead of letting it affect you for the next 3 ground balls you get. Same thing in the box. You're getting very pull heavy, or you're trying to do too much at the plate. You start popping up. Just staying on a baseball, trying to hit the square middle of the baseball, and you drive into a gap. It's just little things that you adjust to, and you realize that the more you play, the easier it gets to realize what you're doing and how quickly can you adjust to it.
Yeah. I mean, what is something then, like I look back, if I could tell my younger self or players, and again, like I'm really impressed with just how understanding you are of that, because I think it's just so hard to do, especially in a game where you're failing all the time.
Yep.
It's When anything in your right mind can you fail 70% of the time and be considered the best at what you do?
Right.
You know, and that's insane. And nowadays, it's not even failing 70% of the time. You could fail 75% of the time because average isn't the same, doesn't have the same value as it used to. And
Right.
so just, you know, it's all of that. I guess what if you were, for guys that are younger right now, or even for yourself, if you were 16, 15, what is something you wish you could, if that's something you could relate to your younger self?
It's a good question.
Yeah, put you on the spot there.
It's a good question. You know, I think when you're younger, I think having a high expectation is very good. Like you want to be hard on yourself, but I also think that, you know, once you get to pro ball, you realize the field gets a lot smaller. You know, you hit a ball 105, 110 off the bat right at somebody, it's an out. Outfielders are a lot faster. Infielders have better arms. Just it's tough to say. Like I kind of want to say you want to, you know, reflect after games and see, you know, how many balls you hit hard, and if your contact was good, if you know you swung at the right pitches. It's easy to say now because we get all the reports after the game, so it's easy to see where all these pitches are. You know, just I think the more you work, the more you're going to get out of, you know, if you're working a lot on baseball and you go into the cage for, you know, an hour a day and you really work on something, you're going to get, you know, something out of it. A lot of people think that you're just going to show up to the field and be, you know, the best player on the field just overnight by doing nothing. You know, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the work, because nowadays kids are in the weight room at 13, 14 years old. I didn't get into the weight room until I was 16, 17 years old. So, you know, just, it sounds so cliche, but just like working hard is the best thing you can do to help yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can't fake it. You know,
Right.
there are some guys I say that are so uberly talented that things happen, right? It's just undeniable. But when you get into pro ball, for like the majority, almost all the guys, they're there because they're good. You
Yeah.
know, if you make it, there's a whole other component to that. You make it because you continue to put the work in, but then you also have to be willing and understand how to figure yourself out. You know,
Yeah.
I told people this. I know guys that are the most talented players I probably have ever seen, like physically toolsy, and never made it to the big leagues
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't put it all together.
Yeah.
And that starts on the mental side, you know. So I think you make a great point as a younger kid, you got to understand that you have to work.
Yeah.
But also I think it's fair to say too, you got to be willing to have your mind's got to be in the right place, because I know you can hit a ball like 900 feet, but if you're not mentally in a good space, you got no chance.
Yeah. And also another thing I would say, I just kind of thought of this.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy in, you know, middle school, high school, when I had to go play in these tournaments and all my friends were going out, hanging out, going to parties and all these things. And, you know, it sucked, you know, going to these baseball every weekend. I want to go hang out with my friends, but you have to make those sacrifices. You know, a lot of kids have that natural gift, like you said, when you're 12, 13 years old. But once you hit high school, you're 14, 15, 16, 17, you know, it's going to catch up to you. People are going to be working harder. People are going to be in the weight room. People are going to be doing more. And if you don't make those sacrifices, people are going to pass you. It's the honest truth.
I mean, and it's the sacrifice, and that's the part of it. We get caught up in this day and age of seeing what other people are doing, and you feel like you're missing out, and that sometimes can hinder your abilities. And I was there. I always felt that my path was different. That's why I brought the question up earlier.
Yeah.
Because you love the sport. It's not you're playing and doing all of that at those moments, doing the turns because you love the game, but it doesn't mean you're not having that inside battle of, well, man, like my friends are all like, this would be fun. I would enjoy this, but I'm making the decision because I think this is best for me.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I remember so we grew up. My brother played with Toussaint. He
Mm-hmm.
he pitched with the Braves for a while. Now he's with the Guardians. But I remember I was probably 12 years old on my way to my buddy's birthday party. And we get there. My dad pulls me in the car and goes, "Hey, we got to go to Orlando." The coach just called. You have to go to a tournament. And I was not happy. Like I never get to go hang out with my friends. I never get to do this. And my dad called Tukey, and Tukey kind of said, "Hey, the biggest thing that got me drafted and why I'm where I'm at today is I made those sacrifices." And when you're 12 years old, it doesn't really make sense. You don't really know what that means, but you realize when you're, 18 years old and you're getting drafted at a high school, you realize, okay, that made sense. I understand why he said that, and I understand why my dad did that for me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it didn't make sense, but so that's the biggest thing. Make those sacrifices.
Yeah, it's true. And it's all about no matter what you do. And that's like even now, like I'm working 3 different things. I'm doing TV, some radio, I'm helping with lessons. I'm trying to grow my own personal brand, and that's not even getting paid. And the hours are longer than people expect because I'm trying to do this all on my own. But again, my hope is if I don't put the effort in, I'm not going to find out what I can do in this space.
Yeah.
Same thing for you. You're not going to find out what you're going to do in this space as a player if you don't work, if you don't take the time and sacrifice. So it's interesting. I think one point I wanted to touch on, we'll get closer to wrap up. Going into professional baseball says a different beast, but the other part of it is relationships and being away. And I think that's not really talked about a lot for the most part. I mean, you go away, you're gone for 8 months.
Yeah.
So how do you balance, your relationships with friends and family when you're back home or being away?
Yeah, I think, like I said, you kind of like what I was saying about turning it on and off with baseball. A lot of my friends will talk after games and we'll hop on the video games, and it's kind of just, keeping up with your buddies. The people that you'll keep up with or, right now are people that you'll be friends with for a long time. So you want to keep those relationships going, calling your family once or twice a day. After games, they're obviously going to text you, and probably when you do better, they'll text you more. But you want to keep in touch with family, and you want to, balance that out. People come visit, family comes visit. It's nice having a good support group because you can always, fall back on somebody. Just, using that text app and that call app a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the important thing too. Of you are away, so you have to. It's a 2-way street in any relationship. You gotta text and touch base with them. They gotta do the same.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge.
100%. You're gone you're at the field from 1:00 to after the game. So you're doing stuff throughout the day, and it's tough. Like you want to lock in with the game, so you don't really text anybody when you're at the field. But after, you got to make sure you're texting your people that you need to text.
Yeah. Yeah, for your own sanity, but it is what you do now, or in the people that you're with, that group for 8 months for baseball, it becomes like your second family, essentially.
Absolutely.
Because those are guys you're spending time with, and you spend just as much time, probably not just, you're spending more time with those people than you are your actual family members and friends and people you grew up with.
Yeah, your teammates here for 6 to 8 months. You're going to be with them more than your family in the off season. So
yeah,
it's important to build good relationships at the field with coaches, trainers, teammates, because these are your guys. You can potentially go up to the big leagues and play with these guys for years to come. So you want to always have those relationships.
You got to. Well, we'll get close to wrapping up here then. For a fun thing, I was just thinking about this. Are you other sports you enjoy playing growing up besides baseball, or are you just fully baseball?
I played football, basketball. Wasn't very great at basketball. I was just pretty tall.
Yeah, you're a big dude. We said 6'5", 230 ish.
Yeah.
Unit.
Football, basketball. That's really it. Football, basketball, baseball.
Do you follow the other like Miami sports teams? Like, are you a Miami sports fan? Or are you more so like are you in on what's happening down in South Beach right now or what?
Big time, even though they're both down 3-1. Yeah, it's tough. It was good a few weeks ago, but I'm happy they both got there, but it's tough watching them lose in the finals. It's tough.
It's tough. Well, hey, they're at least there, for Baltimore. Well, I guess the Ravens won a Super Bowl in 2012. I'm a huge Ravens fan, by the way, and obviously you have the connection with the Orioles. Not self-explanatory. What?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's funny. My brother went to middle school with Lamar Jackson. So
really,
yeah, they went to middle school together at Coral Springs Middle School. So small world.
Yeah. Did he know Lamar was going to right then and there? Did he have that moment with Lamar in middle school that he was just going to be an absolute stud?
Probably. I mean, you could tell. I mean, NFL players look different when they're young. You could tell, like, okay, this guy's got some serious talent.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say probably it sounds like you and I went through similar. You said we were a $185. I think you said as a sophomore. I was like one. Actually, I was bigger than you. I was 200 at that time, but I was lanky. I was, wasn't in the weight room. Just like, and I had some really shaggy hair, like not a good look. But some of these guys, you're like, man, you are just physically more of a specimen, and I can't do what you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Kind of like we were saying earlier, like with these kids nowadays, they're in the weight room when they're young, and they're getting big and strong when they're young, so.
Yeah, you ain't lying about that. So, but it's good. So I just want to kind of get the background. So you did play other sports because, again, I remind people it's still good to do that. When you get older, you can figure out what you want to do, but just test the waters of what's going on. And fun thing is I'm a big food guy. Right. So I think who doesn't love food? You got to love food. Yeah, what's a guilty pleasure food that you either that's a comfort food that you can have at any time or you can do both. You had to have it as a pregame snack.
Comfort food. I want you to guess. What do you think? What's it looking like?
What does it look like?
It's a dessert.
Is it something we've talked about already, or is it no?
Nope. I mean, who doesn't love this dessert?
Well, I don't know what it is yet, Coby. So, I mean, what am I supposed to? It's not. Can't be ice cream because it doesn't sound. Is it?
Big time ice cream guy.
Oh my God! Then we need to hang out, man. Are you kidding me? What's your favorite flavors?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, chocolate chip cookie dough is just the go-to anywhere.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's this place in Sarasota. It's a little RV place. It's like a little RV or a trailer. It's called Scoops and Sprinkles. They make like their homemade ice cream. It's like the Amish own it.
Oh, that you know what? I've driven by that. I never went. And all the times I was down there.
Yeah. They have a flavored Biscoff cookie butter. It's like Biscoff cookie with like cookie butter. It's unreal.
Has this been there for a while? It has to have been.
As long as I've been there since 2020. And then and then I
haven't gone to it.
I honestly like pregame snack. I like some fruit, some applesauce, a little bit of sugar. I don't know. Weird, right? I don't know. Applesauce, some oranges.
Okay, oranges. Yeah, I mean, applesauce isn't crazy. It's not. I've dealt. Honestly, I know a lot of people like their PB&Js. They'll eat like bars. Some guys. The one thing I didn't know, like with some of the players, I think I saw with Latin guys initially, could just eat like so much rice and like fill up before a game. I couldn't do that. I can't. I know baseball we're not running that much, but
as soon as I eat and I get onto the field and I start warming up, I start feeling it quick.
Sits there. It's 90 some degrees outside, and that's sitting in your stomach. That ain't it.
So I've kind of at home, I'll eat a little bit, and on the road, I maybe lunch before the field, but I've kind of learned that I can't really eat a big lunch before the game or a big pregame, or I don't feel great.
Simple as that. Don't eat a lot. But
everyone's different.
Everyone's different. I've known people that could drink a couple glasses of milk before. I think they're insane. But that works for them. Leads to this thing, superstitions. Are you a superstitious player?
The biggest.
Okay. So what do we got? Like, give me one or two.
All the way down to going out for BP and putting my bats in a certain rack. Putting my helmet in a certain spot if we got a hit in there the night before. Sometimes I wake up and eat breakfast, make some eggs and some sausage, and if I had a few hits in that the night before, I'll do it again. If not, I'll go get something else. But I went to Cracker Barrel a few weeks ago with my family. We were in Akron. Had some steak and eggs, pancakes, and hash brown casserole. Hit a homer, had to go back the next day, did it again. Hit another homer, hit another homer, we didn't go back. Bad mistake.
No.
It's just, I'm a very superstitious person, and I know it's not great to be superstitious, but in baseball, it's hard not to. You're playing so much. You have so many at-bats, putting my hat and glove down in between innings in the same spot. If I did well, if I, had a hit, put it down in the same spot. If I didn't get a hit, change the spot. It's just, I feel like every baseball player is superstitious, right?
Oh yeah. The thing is, same way. Maybe not as specific all the time, but yeah, if there was a hit in the same spot, I'm doing the exact same thing. But you know what the thing with superstitions, what I think about? It does kind of reset your mind where you're like, well, that didn't work. I'm going to move it over here. This might have hits in it.
Yeah.
And I would do that. Like that to me helped not have me get so mad all the time. Because I would put my helmet in a certain place. I had to have my batting gloves on a certain way every single time before I hit. I'd saw the order of which I put my clothes on would change. When I'd go out before a game, I remember I was to a point where I went out early for games like 20 minutes before, and I just sucked. I'm like, nope. I'm going out there like 5 minutes before. And I started doing that, and I started getting hounded by some coaches. I'm like, hey, I think I'm onto something. And they're like, well, if it doesn't work, we're going to be mad. I'm like, okay, well, it's going to work because I know it.
Yeah, thinking about it now, on deck, doing some routines, the same thing, putting on my batting gloves first or my Evo Shield first, stretches before the game I do. It takes over your game sometimes. And sometimes it's not good. So, you know how sometimes now in baseball, you only get one batter's timeout.
Yeah.
You only get one timeout when you're in the box. So sometimes when I get to 2 strikes, I have to call a time. And if I don't, I'm going to strike out. I think that. So sometimes I have to call that timeout, and then it works. And then I get a hit, or I don't strike out.
You know what? Next, I'm just going to monitor your games now, and I'm going to just keep tabs of these things.
Yeah,
every little thing now.
It's, superstitious is a real thing. It's, sometimes not a good thing, but sometimes it's very good.
Oh, hey.
It's just a roller coaster of a game.
It's a wave of emotions, and I ride it. I rode it my entire career. I still do now. And things with my own life, if things are going well or I did something, I'm going to repeat it. And it helps. There's so many games with baseball too. That's the other thing. It's just,
you're playing a mental game on it.
Oh gosh. I'll tell you a different time. I can't tell you the other superstitions I've done. That can be off air. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I'll just say that. Gosh, Now I'm thinking of those things. Well, I'll tell you on those later. But anyway, when we'll wrap this up, get you out of here, relax. As you're moving up, what's something then now that if you could, no, scratch that. I'm losing my train of thought here for a sec because I'm still rattled about what I could have said. With so much, with everything going on, and it's an exciting time to be with the Orioles, it is, but also understanding that you're going to have to be patient. How do you tell yourself to be patient and to trust your moment's going to come?
Yeah. I think you have to, like you said, you have to accept that, you know where you're at in this org, and, you have to turn into the best AA player you can be at the time. How can I get better? How can, I improve some things, and how can I be a good teammate? There's certain things that you can control, and there's other things that you have no control over. So, like you said, you have to be patient. A lot of guys are doing it. A lot of guys are being patient. And just be the best player I can be every day. That's it. You don't want to think too far ahead. You don't want to start getting frustrated. You don't want to do any of that. You just want to be the best player you can be. Take every at bat the same, and just stay on top of that.
Control what you can control, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I meant to ask you, you've played against a lot of guys. I've had an example of guys I played with, and yours can be an example of against, of being like, you're different. I'm taking notice. Mine was, first one was Juan Soto. I played with Juan and met him when he was 17.
Okay.
And he came over from the Dominican Republic and hadn't played in America yet. And one of our hitting coaches was like, yeah, that's the best hitter in the organization. And I'm like, stop it. Like, this is also like Bryce Harper just got up there. And I'm like, dude, like, no way. Pretty good. And then the other one I had that moment was watching Gunnar. And wherever you came from, Gunnar, I don't know what it is, but it's different.
Yeah.
Have you had any of those moments with guys you've played with or against so far?
One is actually a pitcher that I faced, Kyle Harrison, with the San Francisco Giants. I don't know what it is. I've faced a lot of good lefties. Something about how he throws and his pitches are, unreal. We got drafted together in 2020, and I mean, every outing I feel like he's 5 innings, 7 Ks, 6 innings, 9 Ks, 4 innings, 10 Ks. He was definitely, obviously special. I'm trying to think. There's so many good players that you play with throughout the season. It's hard you're playing with them, so you're seeing it every day. There's obviously a lot of talent out there. Off the top of my head, I don't really know anybody. There's a lot of good hitters in our organization, so it's tough.
That's, you don't have to say with your own guys because you guys got plenty of talent.
Yeah,
but I just find it's fascinating. I also looked up Kyle Harrison right now. He's in AAA.
Yeah,
I think that's it now. He's got 72 Ks in 42 innings.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's something about how he throws with his arm slot and how the ball carries. It's pretty special.
So is it just his off speed, or then the fact that just like his fat, it's just deceptive that it's got hop with his heater?
So he throws like 3/4 almost, and it like has 2-seam ride and it's hopping. So it's like coming from like a low slot almost, but it's like rising. So even like on the analytic side, it's not like a super hoppy fastball. Like, it's not rising a lot. But because of how he throws it and where he's throwing it from, I mean, it's like an unhittable fastball. And I don't miss many like fastballs in the zone. Like, I'm pretty good with like hitting fastballs in the zone. But this dude's fastball is unreal, and then his slider just comes from, left from right field. So, it's tough. It's a tough at bat.
That sounds like a nightmare I was a lefty. That just sounds like an absolute nightmare for me.
Yeah, I don't think lefties. I mean, if I'm a manager, I'm not putting lefty in the lineup. Honestly,
Well, I wouldn't blame it on that because
I think
what.
last year I was hurt last year when we played him the first time, but I remember he walked Norby to start the game, and then he went 9 straight Ks, and that's it. He went 3 innings, 9 Ks.
Goodness, and you guys, and this was last year in Bowie.
This is with Kauser, Joey Ortiz, Norby, Haskin, Prieto. This is with everybody. I mean, a lineup of complete dogs.
Yeah,
Like,
talent.
yeah. I mean,
Beast.
unreal.
Dude, that's so again, like that's the type of stuff. And I'm monitoring him now. I'm circling that name, but I still can't believe reading the stats: 72 Ks in 42 innings.
Yeah, he's almost striking out, 2 players. I mean, almost
He's
2 guys.
Almost 2 guys an inning.
I mean, it's unreal.
That's ridiculous. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like you said, like I was saying, you run through so many guys, and you have those pitchers, and you're like, man, that's just you tip your hat. And that's the other part of baseball. If a guy's on his A game and he's good and he does everything exactly right, like best of luck to you as a hitter. Can't
Absolutely.
do it. You just try to hit his mistake, and or if you're so locked in, then a lot of things can happen. But pitchers always got the advantage every single time. Last question I got for you. I always like to wrap it with this. Just a piece of advice that you kind of live by, like something that really resonates with you. Love putting you on the spot.
That's a good question. I would say never be satisfied. Like, you never want to be satisfied.
Yeah.
Like, you're hitting 300. Why? Like, hit 333. Like, hit 310. Like, you're hitting. You have a 900 OPS. Get to 950. Like, don't be satisfied with what you're doing. I know Norby had an interview the other day and said a similar thing.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be satisfied ever, because it's going to come a time to where you start struggling and you're not putting in that work, and all of a sudden you're going right downhill. Keep putting in the work, challenge yourself. The Orioles are a big, a team who love to emphasize like challenging yourself in the cage and, ramping things up quick and, getting a game like at bat in off our coaches. So just never be satisfied. Do extra, even when you're going good. Try to be better.
Yeah, I think it's good. Don't be complacent. Don't be complacent with what's going to happen, because someone else is going to go out there and try to continue to get better. And that's not just baseball. That's just in life in general. A lot of people are chasing similar aspirations throughout. And right now, a lot of people are trying to be in your position. A lot of people are trying to then get to the big leagues that are in the minor leagues. Keep doing it. And I'll tell you, it's been good for you so far. And I got no doubt it's going to continue to be good for you moving forward. But Coby, that's it. That's all I got. Hope it was somewhat painless. I just realized I wish we had more time to just talk about food. Maybe we can do something in the works future to put those theories and the superstitions. I think there's more to that. So hopefully we can touch on that. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It was honestly a really good time.
That does it for this week's episode of Off Script with Rip. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Coby Mayo. And like I said in the intro, I think we're going to see Coby in the big leagues sooner rather than later. He really is an extremely talented player, but he's even more of an impressive individual. So before getting out of here, if you guys could please like, subscribe, and review the Off Script with Rip podcast. That is the best way for me to continue making this thing better for all the listeners out there. But that is it for episode 16. I will see you next week for episode 17 of Off Script with Rip.